Welcome to another episode of BOI Weekly on Channels Television, and as usual, we're giving you the stories of the Bank of Industry in their effort to industrialize Nigeria. Now, industrializing Nigeria goes beyond just funding entrepreneurs and their projects. It also includes them being empowered. That's what the Bank of Industry sought to do when they brought some experts who would speak to those involved in agriculture on how they can make the process of their products automatic. This is a joint training organized by the management of the Bank of Industry and Agua Training Center for their clients involved in specialized areas of agriculture. They've brought in experts who deal in automatic processing of agriculture produce, such as poultry, red meat, as well as what could be termed waste products.
I have seen where wastewater is just being discharged with the blood and all that polluting the environment. And I know if the law is not yet there, it will soon be there, that this wastewater needs to be processed or treated before you can discharge them. I have seen where chicken are being processed manually, dipping them into hot water, using hand to remove the feather, cutting and removing the intestine in a way that sometimes you don't even like to eat chicken anymore.
The first speaker is Rod Beckers from the Netherlands. He has his eyes on how poultry processing can be automated, especially since it's the highest supply of protein to the increasing population of the world. He believes this is important to Nigeria because in 35 years, it's projected that the country will have 300 million citizens who will, as a matter of fact, need to be fed. And this, according to him, is just one of the many reasons to activate this necessary change.
Why we have to switch into semi-automatic poultry processing is because of food safety. If you have an offline process, you are buffering everywhere. So everywhere there are some chickens and you don't know how long the chickens are in a certain department. You see mountains of chickens. So, and if you have a line with an overhead and conveyor, you don't buffer anymore. So within 30 minutes, the chicken is completely ready and already packed. And that's completely different than when you are buffering everywhere, because then you don't have control on the quality. Minimize cross and contamination. And cross contamination is of course very bad for the quality of the products. So a bacterium from one chicken go to the other, and before you know, every chicken is fully contaminated. Hygiene is of course very important. We deal with human food. So hygiene in the plant, in the poultry processing plant, but also during your process is one of the key elements to have finally to produce food which is safe for human beings.
He also emphasizes the importance of maintenance of the equipment for its effective and long lifespan. Red meat, which is another high protein consumed in Nigeria, is focused on next, with a concern for the traditional slaughtering method.
Cattle, camels, a little bit the same, so the full line solutions. What's more important, especially here, a ritual solution. So the Islamic slaughtering, the halal slaughtering, is also, you can equip this with the, instead of, like I see a lot of countries, they bind the feet together, they pull them down to the ground and they cut the throat. It's traditional, I know that, and a lot of people want to do that, but as soon as you do that, the animal will debleed and the animal's in the blood. So you condemned the carcass and the outside of the carcass. To get that clean, you have to wash it again. So 90% of the time it's not done, it's not washed, so you have a lot of bacteria on the cattle. So this would be a solution. It's of course a more expensive solution, but in a market, the most upcoming market in Africa with 170 million people, I can imagine that there has to be something sustainable like this.
There are also the management of the human resources in the processing line.
Ergonomics and safety, very important. You are working like 3.5 meters up, you know. It's important that people are safe. feeling safe, and not having to work like this the whole day. Because in the end of the day, that guy is hurting his back. Okay, for a day it's not that big, but when you have to work like that for a year, you have big problems. You know, and when you have a good butcher, you want to have a good butcher and have it, and he has to stay with the company because it's benefiting you.
The business of turning waste to feed is the third part of the presentation.
You see as well that more recently, especially feathers and blood in Europe and other parts of the world is coming as good ingredients for fish feed. People have a lot of fish farms now, and they want products with high protein levels and other amino acid contributing ingredients for the fish feed. And when the feathers and the blood is processed in a good way, then this is quite valuable raw ingredient for the fish feed. And I think in Nigeria there's quite some activity on the fish sector, so this could be interesting as well. And then finally, the fish offals themselves, you can convert it to fish meal. Now, 1 ton of fish meal maybe has a selling price of anything between $1,200 and $1,800 US for 1 ton of fish meal, and fish oil as well is a very valuable end product. So, you know, I think it's interesting business, this rendering conversion of these products.
All this information handed over to agricultural entrepreneurs is backed with the promise of funding the industry in the areas of expanding and acquiring the needed equipment.
Within this building, if you are within Lagos and environment, we have what they call the Lagos Zone Office. Okay, the Lagos Zone Office, they deal with micro, small, and medium projects. Okay, for anything between 1 million to 20 million will fall within our microcredit. That you can go to Lagos Zone Office. Even up to about 50 million, 100, 200 million, you can go to that zone office. But if it's a big project, then you talk about coming to the head office.
The Bank of Industry is very much involved in the creative industry. Every sector of the economy must be industrialized. That is the determination of the Bank of Industry. That's why the acting managing director met with representative of AFRIMA to tell them how he will support them. Beyond that, how he will also empower those involved in the creative industry. The Bank of Industry has been active in promoting and empowering investment in the creative industry, but it seems it's not enough. So the bank is involved in the All African Music Award, AFRIMA, which Nigeria is hosting for the next 3 years, beginning in October. Representatives of AFRIMA have come with a proposal for assistance. Their strategy is to elaborate the benefit of Nigeria being the host.
Why do so many artists live with so much fame? At the end of the day, they die poor. So we see that there's a need for us to rejuvenate that sector. And AFRIMA is in partnership with the African Union, because I've been observed that the creative industry is a unique sector that can make tremendous impact on the GDP. And that is what some of these things that we're looking at on the AFRIMA perspective. For us, AFRIMA is taking place in October. It was announced last year by the International Committee of AFRIMA. 13 countries bidded to host AFRIMA. And after so much debate, because we have meetings in Namibia, in Gabon, in Ghana, after so much debate, it was given to Nigeria for a number of reasons. One, because we have a booming music industry that is growing, and the only way to do that is to entrench it. So Nigeria is going to host it for 3 years, that's 2014, 15, and 16. From there, move to another country.
Part of our roadshow over the last few months has been trying to get in partnerships and buy-in from the private sector and also from the public sector. So in that regard, we have met with the SGF. We've also met with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, who are very important, obviously, from a tourism point of view, at positioning Nigeria, who's the host country, as a tourism destination. And because of our vision as well of creating employment, Michael has already mentioned that the big drive of AFRIMA is adding to the GDP of the African continent, and by default, obviously, to the GDP of the host country. We had to meet with the Ministry of Trade and Investment because their big drive is on creating employment, but also, most importantly, positioning Nigeria as a destination for foreign direct investment, telling the good news story about Nigeria, and also positioning this country positively on a global scale. And that's how we ended up with Bank of Industry.
Not forgetting the immediate changes it will bring to the music sector.
Amount of structure or restructuring that will go into the business called music in Nigeria. And indeed, I was very positive that after the summit, and even before the summit, we'll begin to see more addition to the 1.6 trillion, it's a billion trillion, that is added after the rebasing for the creative and entertainment industry. We believe that, like so many other countries in the world, entertainment, creative industry can do much more. We so believe we have not scratched the surface at all. And that is the reason why AFRIMA took that headlong and said, Africa will tell the African story, we'll tell it the way it should be told by Africans. And indeed, we will start from the host country, building it up to the entirety of Africa. So we thank you very much for coming today.
But for the Bank of Industry, the focus is the creative industry as a whole, making it more viable and attractive to investors than it presently is.
When the paradigm shift was launched in 2006, we realized the potentials in the creative industry, even before the authorities started talking about it. And we've been trying to support our talents in this area. As you know, we have a lot of talents in Nigeria in the creative industry, both in theater and music. And under the rebased GDP, that sector is contributing about 1.42% to Nigeria's GDP, and that's without support. We believe a lot more contributions can be made by that sector with considerable support. Under the NIRP, that's the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan, and the National Enterprise Development Program that was launched, the two schemes were launched on the 11th of February by the President. The two schemes recognize the potentials of the creative industry, and they are part of the two schemes.